Welcome back to Talking Comics with the Toy Vault. I'm Alex.
And I'm Alyssa.
And this week, Alyssa, what are we talking about?
Alright, so for Marvel, we are doing issue 1 of Edge of Spiddergeddon. For DC, we're going to talk about an issue 1 of a brandy spanking new book called Pearl. And then for Indie Comics, we're going to do issue 1 of a book called Crowded. So it's all brand new stuff, easy to jump onto the train if you're interested.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good jumping on points here. I mean, 2 brand new series, and then one that's leading into a new event. Spiddergeddon, probably the sequel, I guess, to Edge of the Spider-Verse, or the Spider-Verse, where all the Spidey people from all the different universes got together to fight vampire people who were trying to eat them. Like, that's the story. They all get together. The Superior Spider-Man Doc Ock is there, organizing the whole thing, and it's great, because I love the Superior Spider-Man. But this issue, in particular, is talking about the most rockinest, government-hating, punkest, rockinest Spidey of all time. It's Hobie Brown Spider-Man, or Spider-Punk.
Every time somebody calls him Spider-Punk, he corrects them. He's like, it's Spider-Man.
It's so good.
So on the first page of Edge of Spiddergeddon, there's actually a pretty nifty little description of who he is as a character, so that if you haven't read anything that contains Spider-Punk, you kind of have at least a sort of idea where he's coming from. Because if you're only used to, like, the standard, like, movie Peter Parker, it's a little bit jarring.
Little bit. This is a completely different person entirely.
Oh, yeah.
And he's fighting the system. He's fighting the government. He's fighting President Osborn. And, spoiler alert, he wins.
It says the oppressive U.S. President of Earth 138, before he was handpicked by Superior Spider-Man to join his Spider Army opposing the Inheritors.
The evil vampires who wanted to eat the spiders.
He's been around the multiverse and back to the streets of NYC.
And this whole issue is kind of just, kind of gives a lowdown on, like, the world of Earth 138. This is, everyone's a punk, you know, there's Captain Anarchy. There's, like, a punk rocker Hulk who just wants to be left alone. It's super great, and it's all about Spider-Punk trying to prove that he is Spider-Man, not Spider-Punk. And gets an ominous warning for the future, which will be probably resolved and talked about in the actual Spiddergeddon. Because, like, the original Spider-Verse that came out a few years ago, it's going to do the edge of Spiddergeddon first, and then move into the actual Spiddergeddon. And then that'll probably be... Actually, they didn't say, although in the back of the book, it gives you a timeline of, like, some of the other books. We got Edge of Spiddergeddon number 2, 3, 4, 0, because that's how math works, and Superior Octopus number 1, which I am very excited about.
It's a very Marvel kind of layout.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, the next one, they're bringing back Gerard Way's Spider, which made a first appearance in Edge of the Spider-Verse number 3, I think, which was really well received, and we're getting a Build-A-Figure, I think, for it in the Marvel Legends wave soon, which is gonna be sweet.
And just in case, for some reason, you don't know who Gerard Way is or why this is exciting, he was the singer and writer for the band My Chemical Romance before they broke up. So my 15-year-old self, anytime Gerard Way is associated with something, screams on the inside. This particular issue, though, is pretty much our Spider-Punk here dealing with... So he's basically dealing with somebody who wants him to sell out. And I feel like that is the best way that I can describe it without completely ruining it, because it's actually pretty interesting to read.
Like, everything you know about a punk rocker and everything they would be against is exactly what this book is trying to show you. You know, it's Spider-Punk raging against the machine, and then the machine comes through and says, you gotta conform. And he says, no. Which is, I mean, great. And then it ties into, like, at the end, it gives you a little segue into, like, the bigger plot of Spiddergeddon. So I am definitely going to pull Edge of the Spiddergeddon. I really like Spider-Man. I like the different Spider-Mans that have existed. We got Spider-Ham back for some stuff, which is going to be great. They started off with Spider-Punk. Hobie Brown's great. So I'm definitely going to pull Edge of the Spiddergeddon and Spiddergeddon when it comes out.
I'm definitely gonna pull it too. Not just because of Gerard Way, but because I absolutely love the direction that it's going so far, and I like that they're trying to basically market him for the masses. So I just think the whole thing is really cool, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Because if issue 1 is this strong, then I feel like the rest of them are only going to get better from here. So
Yeah, I mean that's how I felt about Spider-Verse and Edge of the Spider-Verse, and I really liked Edge of the Spider-Verse and Spider-Verse.
not to mention Spider-Punk is just so cool.
Oh my god, I want that! I want that figure, that Marvel Legends figure that came out a while ago. I want that so bad.
I was a little disappointed in the guitar that came with it because it's just like a solid white, kind of not well sculpted guitar. But I mean,
yeah, but at the same time, like we could easily make something else to go along with it, or paint it up, you know. I mean,
true.
maybe that's why it's white. Maybe it gives you a chance to like be a little creative with it,
Mm-hmm.
which would be fun. Next up, what do we got next?
For DC, we have the book Pearl.
Pearl, first of all, is the brainchild of newly DC signed Brian Michael Bendis. And with Bendis comes 2 artists that he worked, well, technically 3. 3 artists he works with a lot. Michael Gaydos, Alex Maleev, and David Mack. And this book is him and Mike Gaydos. Mike Gaydos and Brian Michael Bendis created Jessica Jones. That was like their biggest work together. They've done a few indie books here and there. Gaydos has a lot of covers for any book Bendis writes. These 4 people like work together so well that if you told me they all live in like the same like house and just like open the door and yell at each other about needing art, one of them will pass out an art and Ben will just pick it up and put it on the printer or something. I mean, to go with that, the variant cover is done by Alex Maleev. So, parents be warned, Pearl is not suitable for kids. This is very much an adult book. It has a rated M mature rating for it, so be advised this is definitely not for kids. This is for the mature audiences only.
Issue 1 wasn't too bad with that sort of content, but that isn't necessarily to say that it won't be in the future, so at least now we know.
Yeah, like you can never tell with everything going on in the next few issues. But so be advised. It's an interesting story. We mentioned it last week, but this is kind of a story of a tattoo artist who's part of the Yakuza. And it's about her story, Pearl, and how she becomes greater involved in the Yakuza and this mysterious tattoo created by some crazy, like, Leonardo da Vinci-esque tattoo artist that only, like, a few people would recognize.
Basically, the way it starts off is with somebody recognizing the art on Pearl's wrist, which is the tattoo that she received from this man. And having a tattoo by him is pretty much like the holy grail of tattoos. Like, he's pretty much impossible to find. They're notorious for being, like, ridiculously expensive. But for some reason, this man has chosen her for the tattoo and did not charge her for it. He simply told her to sit down, and he put it on her. She didn't get to choose what it was.
Yeah, he just knew that the tattoo he gave her was something that was going to mean something to her later. And it's become a focal point in the story. It's only issue 1, so they bring it up once or twice, and it kind of like delves into her past. But honestly, I think Pearl's an interesting title comparatively to the other DC stuff we've gotten from Brian Michael Bendis. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Action Comics or Superman or the Man of Steel 6-issue weekly series that came out recently. But I was kind of disappointed with the Man of Steel series, and Superman #1 kind of left me a little disappointed. But so far, I'm just not super impressed by Bendis' work. It just feels like he took the same rut he's been in Marvel and just kind of like moved that rut to DC. But with Pearl, I kind of feel a sort of passion behind it. Like, I can feel like he's excited to write this book from how this book feels.
I'm definitely intrigued by it so far, and obviously if you're somebody who likes Jessica Jones, or even if you haven't read Jessica Jones and you've seen the overall, like, art style and color scheme and stuff of Jessica Jones, it's got that very similar vibe. It's almost very inky looking, which is very cool to me. I like things that are artistic-y looking and kind of unusual. So, I mean, like, I haven't personally read Alias.
I've read all of Alias, and Alias is vastly different from the Jessica Jones shows just because it's so steeped in the Marvel like universe. Like she dates people who have not shown up when season 1 came out, have not shown up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and will eventually, more than likely, never cross paths.
But even though I haven't read it, like, I've seen the cover art and I've seen all the books and everything. One of my best friends, like, loves Alias, loves Jessica Jones, and they're all absolutely stunning.
All the cover art's done by David Mack, who actually did, like, the art in season 2 of Jessica Jones, that, like, her painter, friend or whatever, like, did. That was all David Mack.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really good. He has this really, he really does, like, really, like, blue and purple, like, watercolors is really his thing. It's gorgeous stuff. And one of the best parts about picking up Jessica Jones singly was the David Mack covers. We didn't get any David Mack covers with Pearl, but we got Alex Maleev, who also has his own, like, very, like, matted style. Like, how, like, you can see the brush strokes when he paints. This is all, like, super painted, and that's Maleev's style, and it's gorgeous. He and Brian Michael Bendis recently did the infamous Iron Man, which turned Doc Doom into Iron Man. But yeah, Pearl, it's definitely has an interesting plot. It's something that, like, even though it says Jinx World, that's, like, the sub-company that, like, Brian Michael Bendis owns. So he's just releasing this under the DC imprints. But, I mean, it has nothing to do with DC. Superman isn't going to show up and try to get a sweet tattoo by Pearl, that's for sure. But at the same time,
that'd be hilarious, though.
I would love that. Just like, I have this piece of kryptonite. Like, you gotta make me a tattoo. And she's like, Superman, I don't know how to break this to you, but you can't break your skin. Even with the kryptonite, it won't last.
He wants a tattoo of kryptonite to show that he's not afraid of his weakness.
Ain't afraid of nothing. Tattooed across his chest. Giant kryptonite shaped like Lex Luthor.
As a fun bit, if anybody's actually listening to this, you should totally let us know what sweet tattoo you think Superman would get.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. I would love to hear the insane nonsense that would come with Superman. My personal, like, moving aside from the kryptonite one, my personal one would just be, like, a quote by some older, like, American historian or, like, public figure, like a president or something like that. And a nice American flag, but it's like the D-Day American flag being raised up by people. But the people are like everyday heroes, like a firefighter, a police officer, a lunch lady. Like, I feel like that'd be just like the cheesiest, like, American, like, prideful thing that Superman could ever do. The only way it'd be better is if Superman, like, helped the person who created the tattoo, like, through art school or something.
Oh my god.
Like, it goes full, like, truth, justice in the American way. Mr. Boy Blue Scout. I love Superman. I love his dumb Boy Scoutness. Which you don't see that often because they try to make him all dark and edgy. And I'm like, just, Man of Steel and Justice League would have been better movies if Superman just took the time to, like, help an old lady across the street. Help a dude move into his house. Assemble IKEA furniture for someone. Sit down and teach someone how to cook, like, an easy meal for him and his wife. Like, those are all very Superman things, and I'm missing that. And I just, if I said a movie of Superman just doing odd jobs for people around Metropolis, I'd watch it. I'd pay $15 every day to watch that movie. I'm like, you go, Superman, you help that lady cross that street. Watch out for that car.
He just lifts the car over the old lady.
And then he teaches the driver the bad things about, like, texting and driving, and, like, gets an emotional scene about it. Next up, Alyssa, what do we got?
Our indie title, which is a book that is called Crowded.
Yeah, what do you think about Crowded?
I really like it so far. I think it's interesting. I think it's fun.
Parents be warned, Crowded is rated teen plus, for depictions of graphic violence and the theming content of the book. I mean, Crowded basically is, like, what's Crowded about?
So the best way to explain Crowded, I think, would be to say that it takes place in a world where there's a GoFundMe sort of website where you can get crowd-funded assassinations done. So basically, you would make an account where you would put the person that you wish to get killed off or whatever, and then people can back you, and you have, it seems like a month to...
They bring up the month timeline a lot.
I don't know if it's always a month or if this particular campaign only runs for a month. Because, I mean, like, with GoFundMe projects now and things like Kickstarter, like you can set different goals and timelines. So I don't know if maybe that's only this specific assassination only has a month on it, but
We'll have to read further in in the current later issues. But issue 1 kind of sets up the basic plot. It introduces the idea of a crowdfunded assassination, and since there are crowdfunded assassinations, there are websites that provide bodyguards for hire, which is where the two main characters, Charlie Ellison, and Vita, which Charlie is the one that's got the crowdfunded hit on her, where Vita is her hired bodyguard.
also my cat's name is Charlotte and we call her Charlie, so I'm immediately invested in it because of that.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting take on the series. I like the art style a lot. It feels very like light for like the tone of the story. Like Charlotte looks like she's made out of bubble gum. She looks like Bubblegum Princess from Adventure Time.
It's almost kind of pop art looking.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it looks like.
And everything, like, Charlie's got pink hair, and she wears a lot of pink clothes, and her speech bubbles are pink. So there's a lot of pink going on here, but I kind of like it.
Vita is like has earth tones. Like she has darker skin, brown hair. She has a yellow jacket that isn't like super bright. It's kind of a matted yellow jacket, and like all of her speech bubbles are like that like orangey yellow, like her jacket,
like a mustard color.
Yeah, like a mustard color. That's a perfect description of it. It's like a mustard jacket, which these two bright characters compared with like the brown backgrounds in the city, like very much stand out. But at the same time, it's just the entire art really just stands out. I like the art a lot.
And I mean, the first issue, to me, is exactly what you'd want a first issue of this sort of a series to be, where, you know, you have these two people meeting up, you kind of see how their personalities are going to clash together. Obviously, one is one is protecting her from the assassins, and the other one, somebody wants assassinated. So, obviously, the one who's the bodyguard wants to know what this girl could have possibly done, that this many people want her dead.
Yeah, because she's hit like $1 million, right?
Yeah, something like that. Like, I think there's a panel where Vita is talking about how it's like one of the craziest campaigns she's ever seen. Like, it shot up so quickly. And so, obviously, Charlie with her bubblegum pink hair over here is going to be saying that, like, she can't possibly comprehend why it is that anybody would want her dead, let alone over $1 million worth of people wanting her dead. But I mean, as we would probably think, and as Vita would probably think, there's gotta be something there. There's no way that you would make that much money to kill somebody off for no reason.
Exactly. Issue 1 gives us a really good taste of what the story's about, and I, for one, am gonna pull this series. This is a super interesting... I mean, it's not a super interesting concept, but, like, the execution and the art and the characters, I really like.
See, like, I kind of disagree where I think that it is a super interesting concept, just because basically I can't even scroll through my Facebook page without seeing people posting up GoFundMe pages and Kickstarter projects. And I mean, there was just that huge debacle where people were trying to raise money for billionaire Kylie Jenner to become the first self-made billionaire or something like that, when, even though she's a Kardashian and she already has tons of money.
Yeah.
But, I mean, companies that work as, like, the middleman for that sort of thing had to derail it and send everybody their money back. So, I mean, like, in a world where we already pretty much rely on the internet and cryptocurrency for, like, everything, I think it's an interesting concept that they're kind of taking it a step further, where they're like, if you can ask for money for, like, I don't know, like, your cat's surgery, who's to say you can't ask for money to be like, here's basically the pool you can earn if you kill someone. That's kind of what it seems like to me. So
all right. I get what you're saying. I think I understand now.
I think it's like strangely relevant, is what I mean to say.
That is true. It is pretty relevant, and it has. I mean, it already is thrown into there with the modern feel, with like the cell phones, like the way Charlotte is dressed. It's very like modern, like young adult, like, and like the world around it just feels very modern. So like adding all this together, just it's really nice.
She definitely looks like she hangs out at like a Starbucks and drinks chai. Like,
oh yeah, no, like that's like the standard look. Like she's probably like bringing her like MacBook Air to like, you know, write a few pages of her thesis or her latest novel.
I think at one point she mentions one of the people, a username that pops up or something. She makes fun of them for going to art school.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be something there, but...
Yes, Crowded, number 1. I'm definitely going to pull it. Alyssa?
I'm definitely going to pull it. I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and I'm at least intrigued right now enough to continue it. Because a lot of times, I don't necessarily want to... When it comes down to it, pulling comics is money. It's always less expensive to just wait until the trade comes out. So I feel like when I'm at least intrigued enough to pull the single issues and want to see it as it goes, I feel like that's a big deal to me. So, I mean, it's kind of cool to me that all 3 of the books that we've talked about tonight are things that I want to add to my pull.
Yeah, and speaking of that, if you sign up for a comic pull list with the Toy Vaults, you get 20% off. So keeping up with these really interesting stories is gonna make everything a little easier on the wallet. But at the same time, you get to keep up with the stories. You get the great variant covers, even the great main covers. You don't sometimes see some of these covers in the trades. So add some stuff to your pull list. Make a pull list if you haven't. There's plenty of good books coming out right now.
And if there's ever a title that's coming out or something that's already currently out and you want to know what we think of it, you can always let us know. And if it's not something we're already pulling ourselves or whatever, we'll try to read it for you at least, so you have at least some sort of an idea about what it's about and whether or not it's worth a shot. So,
all right, now we're going to talk about a few books coming out next week. Alyssa, what are you excited for next week?
So anybody who knows me personally would know that I'm pretty much hyped on Image books. I love pretty much every Image title.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Image does good work.
It started off with my obsession with The Walking Dead and then just kind of went from there. But the 2 books that I'm most excited for are Hack/Resurrection and Hit Girl. Both of them are a little bit deep into their runs, not too bad. Hack/ is on a number 10 and Hit Girl's on a number 7. But I think both of the stories are so great, and I'm honestly just so on board with any sort of, like, crazy, like, murderous, violent female lead character. So both of them are just so great to me. But
I mean, if Mark Millar can hit a deadline, it's gonna be good stuff.
Neither of them are what I would consider to be work safe. They're
No.
definitely both books that are geared more towards an adult audience, despite the fact that Hit Girl is a young woman character. But they're both just so amazing. Like, they're 2 of the few comics that I will make it a point to keep up with. Like, when I get my pull list weekly, there's a lot of books that I'll sit on for a little while before I actually get the chance to read them, but those are the 2 that, like, the night that they come out, I'm sitting on my bed with a flashlight reading them. So
I'm very excited about West Coast Avengers. I talked about it last week. Kelly Thompson's bring the Hawkeyes to the West Coast. It's gonna have America Chavez, Quentin Quire, even Gwenpool showing up, and I really don't like the character Gwenpool, but this might change my mind. Like, Kelly Thompson's writing her. I feel like if Kelly Thompson writes something, there's at least gonna be some sort of redeeming factor in this, or she might just make her terrible. And I'm like, I appreciate you understanding that this character is bad.
So is that a series that has like a predecessor? Like, is there something that you should read if you're interested in reading West Coast Avengers?
West Coast Avengers. If you want to read West Coast Avengers, you kind of want to understand where a lot of these characters are coming from. Like, a lot is almost the only person from the Marvel like cinematic universe that's going to be there is Hawkeye. Like, Clint Barton Hawkeye is going to be on the team with his successor, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and her and America Chavez were on the Young Avengers together, the Karen Gillan and John McKelvey Young Avengers, which is a very good series. Quentin Quire shows up a lot of the time. He's the anarchist, the X-Men. He's just the biggest jerk in the entire mutant history, and that's saying a lot. And Gwenpool was a throwaway joke character. She came in a Christmas issue, and then they made her a real character, and they made her like a fourth Wally breaky character. Like, she's from our world. Like, she's from this Earth. And, like, she reads the Marvel comics as they come out, and then her power lets her go to the comic worlds, which would seem good. It's just been more of a joke than it is a seriousness. So I'm hoping Kelly Thompson can bring some actual, like, character depth to Gwenpool instead of just being like, oh, this is super fun and everything like that.
That's fair. I'd like to see Gwenpool be more of a character too.
Yeah, it's great. But if you want to do some reading on it, all new Hawkeye. Talked about that last week. Kelly Thompson, all new Hawkeye. The Matt Fraction Hawkeye with Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, mostly focusing around Clint Barton. Young Avengers, the America solo series that came out recently, and then Gwenpool. And then there's some older X titles you want to get into. The most recent Gen X, or Generation X, had some Quentin Quire in there. Some of the older Wolverine and the X-Men stuff had some good Quentin Quire in there. He first appeared in Grant Morrison's New X-Men, so if you haven't read that, go read that, because that is also real. So that's probably the book I'm excited about the most. Teen Titans number 21, just edgy, no parents don't understand, Damian Wayne and like the rest of his two rad crew. And then there's Wallace West, Kid Flash being like, I'm just here to have like a good time and run. And we're like, good for you, Wally.
We know how I feel about Damian Wayne, so.
You love him?
I do love him.
I love Damian Wayne. He's great. Alrighty, everyone. That was Talking Comics with the Toy Vault. I've been Alex.
I'm Alyssa.
And we'll catch you next time.
Did you just wave?
I just waved.